Hello everyone, this is Giganotosaurus, and welcome to my latest video. This is a video that I've been planning to get out for a while, but I've ran into various hiccups. I started with trying to make a way more ambitious overview of chaos theory, but ran into a lack of motivation with the realization that Season 2 is only 2 months away. Well, was only 2 months away anyway. However, turns out when you're bored, time goes by much slower, so here we are. Yes, this video is about chaos theory, because I was pleasantly surprised by this series and I want to do a proper review. Before I get started though, I need to properly explain, on this channel, at least once, how I feel about the Jurassic World franchise in general for context. While not an immediate critical flop, like I'm sure some JP purists want me to state, I don't think Jurassic World as a franchise has aged well. Before I explain why, I'd like to say that I actually really like the first Jurassic World movie. Is it amazing or anything? No. But as a Jurassic Park is Back film, I think it pulled it off really well. The plot in general is pretty good. The Indominus Rex looks boring as hell, I admit, but in terms of execution it's actually pretty good in my opinion. It's almost kaiju-like in how it completely disassembles the establishment. The raptor training stuff as well is actually really interesting and cool to me, and is grounded enough for me to get properly invested in it. The dinosaur military stuff would work more if they didn't insist on taking it seriously, but here it works enough as satire for the US's insistence to militarize everything that breathes. The final fight? Goofy, but honestly just the right amount of cool and heart for it to work for me. The Mosasaurus in this movie is also actually relevant. Overall, good movie. Kind of boring on rewatches, and the characters are absolute nobodies, but it doesn't seriously harm the experience. A solid 7 or 8 out of 10 film. If it was the only movie, as a single massive nostalgia tribute to the original Jurassic Park series, I feel like then it'd be much more fondly remembered than it currently is. Instead, it was just the start of the fall. The fall did basically happen right away, with the absolute smack to the back of the skull that was Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I consider this the worst movie in the entire franchise. I find little in the way of redeeming qualities to it, outside of Bayona's directing making a lot of scenes look cool. The writing is absolutely horrendous, the references have now easily breached into the toxic pandering territory, and the dinosaurs in this movie are easily the worst in the entire franchise as well, both in looks and execution. The Baryonyx and Sinoceratops are now permanent stains on this franchise we're just now going to have to deal with. The Allosaurus isn't much better, kind of just existing before being hit by a rock. The Indoraptor is actually an improvement over the Indominus's design in my opinion, but they mess up the execution to a hilarious extent. This is also where the dinosaurs in the JP franchise are easily at their most monstrous. Animals don't try and eat everything that moves during a goddamn apocalypse, let alone everything else that happens like pursuing prey through bloody magma. This is when I ended up dropping investment in Jurassic World. Dinosaurs are real-life monsters, in a sense. It's one of the reasons why they're so appealing. Take away what makes it unique, take the real out of the monster, then it's just a monster. Why should I care anymore? I don't go to watch Jurassic World to watch just monsters. I have the Monsterverse for that, whose movies pull that off much better. Finally, Dominion. I don't need to cover this one in as much detail because it is by far the most hated movie in the trilogy and I'm happy for that. I won't complain, even if I think it's still better than Jurassic Park 3 and Fallen Kingdom. Yes, I think Jurassic Park 3 is an overall garbage movie, shoot me. When I watched Dominion, I was mostly just jaded. Fallen Kingdom already set up what this one was going to be like, so none of it surprised me. The fact the plot didn't matter didn't surprise me. The fact they wanted to go for accuracy but completely fumbled didn't surprise me. The fact the movie was just non-stop visual stimulation with no substance didn't surprise me. I just felt dead inside the entire watch because there was nothing really inspiring about it. However, I'll give Dominion the time of day, if only because the dinosaurs are unironically the best they've ever been in the 3 movies. Yes, there's still some stinkers. Pyro is trash, Dimetrodon is easily the worst design in the movie, nearly on par with Baryonyx, The Allosaurus introduced in Big Rock certainly didn't break the mold, and Giganotosaurus could have an entire case study dedicated to just how much they fumbled it. However, there's a lot of good too. Feathers are now more normalized. The new Parasaurolophus, Nasutoceratops from Big Rock, and Oviraptor are fantastic. The Quetzalcoatlus, lack of screen time aside, is the best looking pterosaur in the franchise. Therizinosaurus had the best scene and was arguably the best executed dinosaur in the movie. I am willing to accept this film's faults a little bit at least, just based on this principle. However, in the end, it doesn't really matter, does it? People can blame director choices as much as they want. Trevorrow and Spielberg have both made their own choices that have harmed the franchise. However, the bigger flaw seems to be Universal's extremely poor inward communication due to just wanting to rush out the movie to make a product. They haven't really learned from this either. For some reason, Jurassic World 4's production has been very public until recently, and it shows them trying to push the movie for release within only a year really, despite the fact that directors and actors seemingly weren't really willing to touch the IP for the longest time, and they've only really gotten that stuff settled recently. I know it's almost certainly getting delayed, but it still shows a real drive to just try and get the project out as soon as possible for profit, rather than, making a good movie. To not be a downer, Battle at Big Rock was really good. I can't discuss much about it that doesn't overlap with Rick Raptor's video, so just check that out if you haven't. When Chaos Theory was announced, I just rolled my eyes. I did not like Camp Cretaceous, nor really anything about it that wasn't the Scorpius Rex. Best hybrid, hands down. However, I actually got quite interested when watching a particular scene that was posted on YouTube, and decided to watch it. I was so shocked at just how good the show was. Extremely surprised. Is it absolutely amazing or anything? No. It definitely has its problems, but it was such a breath of fresh air that I can confidently say Chaos Theory is the best of the Jurassic World franchise. Chaos Theory is character-driven. The characters have depth. There are themes. Nobody is stupid. It, honestly, to me, feels so much more like something from the Jurassic Park era rather than Jurassic World because of this. Again, I did not care for Camp Cretaceous. I thought it was similar in quality to the Jurassic World sequels. I thought the Camp Cretaceous kids sucked. I didn't care about any of them. But in Chaos Theory, I do care. I care about all of them. I actually get invested in these characters and the strife they're going through in this show. It's fantastic. To properly explain, why don't we delve into the story and its characters? I will stress going into this that I am by no means an analyst, especially with characters. People have asked me to write my own stories before, but I've honestly never tried because I struggle to understand humans on a more intimate level, and it frustrates me. I'm not autistic as far as I know, but I still have a serious lack of empathy. I'm just going to do the best I can. The inherent plot of Camp Cretaceous is that one of the main characters, Brooklyn, unfortunately died in a dinosaur attack. It's later revealed through Ben doing some digging online that it wasn't actually an accident, and somebody, for whatever reason, is trying to assassinate all of them. The plot itself is unraveling this mystery. However, the bigger hook for this series for me was just how utterly broken the crew became after Brooklyn's death. It was a tragedy, and through trying to find out the truth, they ended up confronting their trauma about the event and come out the other side as better people, both internally and as a team. Let's talk about the catalyst for this whole adventure first.
There is your home.
Ben in this series is honestly the weirdest one to start with because of his everything. First of all, he's huge. Even in series, they keep bringing up just how he's became this brick wall of a man from that twig he was in Camp Cretaceous. I don't even think he's exercising or working out either, considering what we see of his lifestyle, so he's just built fucking different. They call him Big Ben once, and it honestly fits him completely. I can't be mad. In Camp Cretaceous, he was just kind of a dweeb that turned Rambo, and then he had to remind everyone just how awesome he is, and it was obnoxious. In Chaos Theory, though, he's still a bit awkward and can sometimes get on people's nerves, but by contrast, he's also almost a rock. Everybody else on the team is dealing with their own problems and coping with the situation, but Ben is by far the most well-adjusted of the team in that regard. And that means he's somebody they can talk to, or his shenanigans really lighten the mood in an overall quite serious situation. I like Ben. He doesn't have too much going on himself, and a lot of his actions are more to keep the story going, but he's fun, and that's fine enough. Let's go over to the ladies now. Sammy's introduction is honestly one of the strongest in the series. She's also the strongest, by the way, literally. She lifts those two grown-ass men, one of which is a giant, by herself. If she had the courage, she could totally 1v1 an Atrociraptor with that pitchfork. Regardless, when Ben and Darius manage to get to her farm and meet up with her, there's some things that the attentive viewer would notice are kind of off. First of all, her family. Where are they? In Camp Cretaceous, her family and this farm were her everything. So where did they go? She also talks at 1,000,000 miles an hour and constantly shifts topics when talking to them. At first you might think it's just because she's very busy and excited and proactive, but it starts to become very clear, very fast, that she's avoiding something. Ben finally corners her, and it's revealed that they're distractions.
Gotta get some supplies for our trip.
Hey, girl.
She's distracting herself. It's not just Brooklyn's death either. It's other things too. It's revealed later that she and Yaz are kind of at an impasse in their relationship. And there's also this line here.
You okay, Sammy? You seem kinda distracted.
Just busy. It's only me around here with Yaz up north finishing school and my parents.
Your parents, what?
We just don't talk much anymore, but that's okay. I'm keeping busy.
I did not expect them to go there. At all. For people who don't quite get it, let me just lay it out for you. Sam is in a relationship with another woman. She lives in Texas, one of the most homophobic states in the country. Her parents don't talk to her anymore, quote unquote, due to their belief regarding gay relationships. It isn't said flat out. It's a single line. But it's enough for us to get the picture. And it's really sad. I honestly applaud the show for keeping it real and honest like this. Speaking of gay, we need to address Yaz and their relationship, because it's the centerpiece of the arcs both characters go through throughout this season. Yaz, to no one's surprise, has been heavily scarred by her experiences on the island and has been going through therapy to get over her PTSD from the events. One of her best friends dying in a dinosaur attack really did not help this. On her journey, she ended up moving to a dinosaur-free zone and has developed her own form of exposure therapy in order to help herself and her community. The conflict in her relationship with Sammy results from their different paths in life and how they've both handled Yaz's trauma, and it ends up with both of them getting into an argument. Sammy has been overprotective of Yaz to the point of accidentally talking down to her, much to Yaz's annoyance. But at the same time, Yaz has largely been avoiding this issue for months, rather than talking to Sam directly about it. It's only really once she's there with her in person for the first time in a while that it boils over. I found this whole conflict really compelling because it didn't come out of nowhere. This problem arose out of both making very realistic mistakes and a lack of communication. I don't think either of them is more in the wrong than the other exactly, which made it really interesting to see their back and forth. How it's resolved is kind of forced, I admit, but it was still nice to see Yaz being the one that Sammy can lean on rather than Sam trying to be the protective one all the time. Yaz no longer needs to hide behind her work, and Sammy now has someone to lean on in her own struggles. It all works out. Now we get to Kenji. Kenji and Brooklyn had a rough relationship before her death. They actually broke up, because Brooklyn, even for her, became too engrossed with her phone to truly appreciate all he was doing to make her happy. Kenji was going through a lot himself, and he just couldn't do it anymore, so he broke it off. Imagine breaking up with your girlfriend only for her to die in an accident shortly after. Sure, it's not your fault, But the guilt of making her feel bad being one of her last memories of you must be absolutely gut-wrenching. This is also on top of the fact that Kenji now lives in a trailer home after the family's fortune was taken. Why? We need to talk about Kenji's father. Kenji's dad was the main villain of Camp Cretaceous' last 2 seasons. It was some Scan Command Dinosaur King bullshit, don't worry about it. Regardless, he's now in jail. When the whole team is finally back together, they learn that one of the last people Brooklyn saw before her death was him. Kenji confronts him about this, and he begins to do all the usual crap he did to keep his son in line before. He was a businessman, and for him, it's all about manipulation through transactions. He would tell Kenji what he and Brooklyn talked about, but only if he promises to be his dad's puppet for business on the outside. This hurts Kenji. A lot. To just go back to being his dad's puppet again. But he doesn't see any other choice, so he agrees. However, his dad says something that makes him snap.
It'll be easy. I know how you like things easy.
Easy? What part of this is easy? Forcing me to become your puppet just so I can know the truth. That sounds easy? You know what? No, I'm not gonna do it. I won't let you control me anymore.
Getting closure is not worth bending the knee to his father again, so he decides to take the risk. He calls it off, and says goodbye for good. Kenji has no intention of ever seeing his father ever again. But, when Kenji turns to leave, something changes. His father completely comes clean. He agrees to tell them what Brooklyn met him for. No tricks, no schemes. Complete truth. Nothing in return. This came with a lot of shock and doubt from the characters. What he told them didn't really sound like something Brooklyn would do, so it was vague as to whether or not he was telling the truth here. Regardless, when the Atrociraptors attack, he sacrifices himself so they can get away. We learn later in the series that Kenji's dad was right. He was being honest. In one final attempt to make up what he did to his son his whole life, he finally came clean, spoke father to son, and gave his life for him. An honestly amazing self-sacrifice. This was all too much for Kenji. After they fled, they need to stop the car so he can cry on the side of the road. In what is arguably the best single piece of acting in the entire show. Kenji's dad may have been an awful person, but it was still his dad. Darren Barnett absolutely deserves all the praise for his acting because it was so sad here. Speaking of sadness, we need to turn our attention to the actual main character now, Darius. I saved talking about him for last for a reason. Darius was directly tied to Brooklyn's death. After Kenji and Brooklyn broke up, she went to live with him for a while. Brooklyn wanted to meet up with Darius in the woods one night to talk about something, and that's when she was attacked. Kenji was furious with Darius over this. He blames her for his death. If he was there, maybe she wouldn't have died. Darius actually agrees, and it's safe to say that Brooklyn's death absolutely ruined him. Darius completely isolated himself from everyone, including his family, and this especially upset Kenji, who is now part of the family after he was adopted by them. However, nobody knew just how bad Darius had got. Darius calls Brooklyn's phone several times a day, for months, like she's still alive, in order to still hear her voice. The Allosaurus that killed Brooklyn became his Moby Dick. He became obsessed with tracking that dinosaur down. Darius chasing down the Allosaurus in his pickup truck was the reason I decided to watch the series. He realized it was the dinosaur that killed Brooklyn, and, in complete tunnel vision with basically no plan, started running it down in his vehicle, despite the fact it clearly wanted nothing to do with him. He nearly crashed when it mock charges at him. He loves dinosaurs, but calls it a mindless killer. The only time the series ever refers to dinosaurs in such a way. Her death eats away at him, and when he meets up with Kenji, it starts to get worse. He has a secret he really doesn't want to tell Kenji. When they're tracking down the people behind the conspiracy, staking out in a rundown shack together, it comes to a head. They finally get a hold of Brooklyn's phone, and it becomes obvious to Kenji that Darius is hiding something. After almost fighting over it, Darius confesses. The postmortem texting, and his crush on her. Nothing happened, which honestly surprised me. I thought it was going to head to Darius actually going out with her after Kenji broke up, but that didn't happen. They just digest this, while watching her final moments she had left on her phone. It's revealed later that Darius just couldn't face her due to his feelings, and it's something that he just couldn't help. Falling for your friend's ex is an absolute dick move, and Darius knows that. But you can't control who you feel for. It's moments like this that really put Chaos Theory really above and beyond in terms of making the characters feel like people. As you can see, Chaos Theory is a very human story. It has its dinosaurs, and they're cool, and the conspiracy plot is what drives the show. However, Brooklyn's death was the real driver of the story. It was a tragedy. That event is what shaped the show and the main characters. I did not care for the characters in Camp Cretaceous. Kenji and Ben were overconfident jerks. Sammy wouldn't shut up. Yaz was bland, and Darius was a dino nerd who didn't actually know anything about said dinosaurs. Chaos Theory, on the other hand, it gave them depth. I grew to genuinely care about each and every one of them as people. Chaos Theory may have its actions in dinosaurs, but what the story is really about is a group of broken young adults coming together to cope with loss in the face of a tragedy. Mature, genuine, thematic. This is what Jurassic World should be. Consider this a clear divide in the video. Now that I've gone over the main characters, and Kenji's dad, I'd like to talk about two other prominent side characters that I thought were done pretty well. Mateo is admittedly a bit of a plot contrivance, but I think his story is pretty good. A devoted father who ends up getting way too invested in a corrupted system in order to support himself, until it eventually leads to him having blood on his hands. He's not innocent, but you can fully believe his dedication to try and make things right. Then there is the villain. Her. She has no name. She has no voice. Let's call her Raptor Lady. When I first saw what Raptor Lady looked like, I laughed.
Bruh, this dude look like Stingy off a lick. Oh my goodness, no! Look at her eyebrows. Oh no! Oh!
She looks so goofy. I saw her before I actually watched the show, so I had basically no expectations. She actually really surprised me though, in how effective she was in evoking mystery and tension. She's not scary, really, but she's fucking freaky, there's no doubt about that. The way she moves, the way she doesn't talk, the way her comrades react to her. It's almost like she's not human, like she's a raptor herself. This is especially the case because she genuinely loves those raptors. She shows them affection. She genuinely cares for their well-being. They actively communicate in a way that goes beyond animal and trainer. She's genuinely part of the pack, and she's impeccable to watch. I can't wait to see her again. Now let's talk about the dinosaurs. Truth be told, I cared much less about the dinosaurs themselves than the actual plot that revolved around them. However, I can safely say that they're depicted right way more than they're depicted wrong. The vast majority of the designs are either perfectly fine or old ones, so there isn't much for me to say on the dinosaurs specifically. I will say they're not as stupid as they were in Camp Cretaceous or nearly as incompetent. Okay, they're still kind of incompetent, but at least they aren't getting outran by literal children anymore. Let's go over the highlights and new dinosaurs. starting with an old face from Dominion. The Atrociraptors in Dominion were incredibly bland. No personality of their own, and were just kind of velociraptors but again. Chaos Theory changes this. They are still raptors, but their attunement to Raptor Lady is what gives them this personality of being a lot more domesticated than the Velociraptors are. I still think in terms of how they look, they're just Velociraptor 2, but I can at least say they have a distinct personality now. Pachyrhinosaurus is fine. It doesn't really do that much unique, but I'll admit it's probably the best looking Ceratopsid in the franchise next to the Pseudoceratops, who gets plenty of screen time as well. Speaking of which, unlike Dominion, this series actually does cover a lot of stuff about coexisting with dinosaurs. The Pseudoceratops are a migratory species, and thus are seen migrating across the US from north to south from the west of the Rockies, and end up causing issues along the way. There's also a side plot with a roadside attraction which uses captured and abused dinosaurs for entertainment. It's also revealed that the Allosaurus that killed Brooklyn is also the same one from Big Rock. That attack, which was recorded, created a landscape of fear across the country for dinosaurs. It's why dinosaur-free zones began popping up. All great world building. Bumpy returns in Chaos Theory, albeit not for long. She's a proper adult now, and she acts the part. Still bonded to Ben, but can still firmly take care of herself. There's also a scare in the final third where it seems like she's dying, and it turns out she was egg-bound. Shout out to using an actual problem a dinosaur might have that could lead to death, instead of pulling a mysterious sickness out of nowhere. Suchomimus exists. It's one of the better dinosaur designs, but it doesn't do much. It's a very Jurassic Park feeling design, which isn't exactly the praise you think it is when designs like this used to be the norm instead of exceptions. Still looks cool. I hope it'll impress me more in Season 2. Finally, Beklaspinax. I absolutely hate this thing. Beklaspinax does not exist. The dinosaur became invalid in 2016, nearly a decade ago now. One of the few things I can say about stuff like Camp Cretaceous, and whatever other lackluster Jurassic World media exists, is that even if the show itself doesn't represent it right, at least putting the name out there will expose the kids to a more obscure dinosaur. And maybe they'll think it's cool, and becomes a favorite, and they'll try to learn more about it. With Beklaspinax, I can't even have that. It's not just a mistake either. They confirmed in an interview that they knew Altospinax was the right name, and went with Beckel anyway. They also used an Altospinax skeletal in the concept art. They were aware. They probably did this for marketing so they could own a dinosaur, which absolutely sucks. Even in this gem of a show, we can't escape Jurassic World's BS bureaucracy. I may have ended this section on a low note, but overall, that's the only truly bad dinosaur. The dinosaurs overall were pretty decent, and definitely better than they were in Fallen Kingdom, Dominion, and Camp Cretaceous. Let's hope this keeps up. While I love the show overall, I do think it has problems, especially the ending. The final 3 episodes in particular really bother me, because it is where Chaos Theory ends up falling back into a lot of the classic Jurassic World tropes that I absolutely groan through. Like, why are they just waltzing through this secret facility without being detected? Why do guards just act like NPCs and not alert anyone else to the intruders? Why do they have absolutely no sense of self-awareness? Why are dinosaurs just randomly standing around like NPCs? Why is the final battle a bunch of nothing? Why do the characters make dumb decisions for no real reason? Why does the show just drop in brain cells the second a T-Rex is on the screen? Given the rest of the show is generally really good, I'm going to leave the sloppy third act to the fact that they were probably mandated in various ways, including splitting the season in 2 cause Netflix. There is one particular part in the finale that I need to highlight because it really didn't sit right with me. It's revealed, through Raptor Lady turning on a colleague, that it wasn't actually the Allosaurus that killed Brooklyn. It was Raptor Lady and the Atrociraptors. I do not like this. The fact that the Allosaurus was just an animal going on instinct and wanting to hunt created a very interesting dichotomy in how the characters feel about that individual. They inherently know that blaming an animal for doing animal things is wrong. But you can't just ignore that it killed your friend either. This last true resignation with Brooklyn's death, in front of the very Allosaurus that did it, was actually pretty powerful. For that to be just undone by it just being done by the villain and her trained dinosaurs instead doesn't sit right with me at all. Raptor Lady was already engaging as a villain. We didn't need her to kill Brooklyn too. Also, Brooklyn's alive. Yeah, this is something that I haven't mentioned until the very end for a reason. I'm kinda mixed about it. On one hand, after all the characters have been through, her being alive doesn't exactly add on to anything in this season. They may have killed off an important character off-screen between shows, but Chaos Theory kind of got so much better for it. It does kind of feel like a cop-out after going the entire show making us believe she's dead. Now, that's not to say there weren't hints. Brooklyn and Dark Jurassic went hand in hand whenever she appeared in flashbacks. Her obsession with it is what drove Kenji to break up with her. Also, the show's writing is so good that it's not really the end of the world either. Given how good Chaos Theory's first season has been, I can see them pulling off her being alive well. I don't know. We'll see. With that, I leave you all with hope for the future. I'm really excited for Season 2, which may or may not be out before this vid. I'll try my best to get it out before then, but no promises. Fingers crossed that it's as good as the first. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Might make one for Season 2, might not. We'll see. Goodbye, everyone.